represents a possible radical shift in philosophy for what we think the Giants should do in the draft.
Could do, yes. I agree.
That's why I said
yes.
Could do.
Yes.
What did I say? Should do?
You said should.
Well, you know what I meant.
Yes.
Well, then why'd you correct me?
Because I just felt like correcting you.
You're being a pain in the ass already.
That's right. It's Friday. I can't
It's Friday, fool. This could be a real opportunity.
Yeah.
To go and hit the reset button, right? And take a quarterback this year. Now, let's be honest. This is not something we have really discussed a lot on the show.
No.
I like I don't love Daniel Jones. How could you love him? You like him. There's a little remaining intrigue.
He hasn't done enough to make you say, I love him. After year 2 or 3, let's say 3 for Josh Allen and Buffalo,
yes.
You were saying, I love this kid.
Uh-huh.
We're not there with Daniel Jones right now.
and we might not ever get there. So, if you run him back out there and he does the audition, granted, hopefully some better weapons, even though they're basically cutting everybody, and a better offensive line, a better system for sure. He's healthy. But we're not going to rule out that Daniel Jones could be highly functional and somewhat successful.
That's right.
That's not the point. To move this forward, and you don't want to react too much to the combine. This guy, by the way, one kid did run a 4.2. You might want to react to that. And Olavi ran a 4.26 unofficially from the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Get him on the Jets as a receiver for Zach. But specific to the Giants, Tiki, and I'm going to let you take it here, and I'll hit you with some details after, but based on what Willis did this season, based on where the Giants are going into this season, based on where they're drafting, based on what happened at the combine, do they need to maybe think about taking a quarterback?
I'll say this first. Anything is on the table. And I think if you're Joe Shane and Brian Dable and whoever else of the staff is down in Indianapolis, or I should say out in Indianapolis right now, anything should be on the table. The Giants are not in the position to say, well, we got this and we can do this next year if we just do. There is no if we just do. Anything should be on the table for the New York Giants going into this draft and offseason and free agency, which happens before the draft, obviously. But there have been some real combine warriors over the years that we've seen emerge from not anonymity, but some of them have come from anonymity and maybe lower expectations and really help themselves at the combine. I preface this by saying, a couple days ago, the only thing that combine really matters there is, are you healthy? And what do you like as a player, as a kid, as a locker room guy? Let's get to know you a little bit. If you fit our mentality of what you at your position is supposed to be like, then we're going to be interested in you. That's what you're going to find out at the combine. But there's been some guys. Mike Mamula is probably the most famous one from BC who just beasted it. He ran 4.58, had a 10.5 broad jump, he 28 reps on the bench, and gets drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he had a middling career, but he really helped himself at the combine. Yep. Chris Johnson.
Wasn't he taking top 10? I think Mamula was like 8 or 9,
I think you're right about that. Chris Johnson, running back from East Carolina, who, trust me, in 2008, nobody knew who Chris Johnson was coming out of East Carolina. He goes to the combine and runs a 4.24 and crushes his combine workout. He gets drafted in the first round and is a fantastic player for the Tennessee Titans over the course of his career. So some of these guys have actually jumped into the top, in the first round because of their combine workout and been really impressive. Maybe the most important one is the best defensive tackle that we maybe have ever seen, in Aaron Donald, who was undersized at Pittsburgh, and nobody thought that he had the girth to hold up and be a elite all-time D tackle. Maybe a DN, maybe they could lose some weight and convert to linebacker, but he was just little, right? And what he did was beasted at the combine, have this ridiculous workout, and he's now the prototype of what you should do for an interior lineman if you have the athleticism to do it. Tim Tebow had a great one as well. Zach Wilson had a great combine last year for the Jets.
Don't throw Zach in the same sentence as Tim.
I'm not. I'm just saying. Combines can really help you.
Yep.
And Malik Willis, according to all reports, has had an unbelievable combine. The challenge for the Giants now is if you're watching Malik, and by the way, he's a great kid.
You see the video that went viral?
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Helping out a homeless person.
He's just like he
He
seems
didn't even
like,
know the camera was on him.
No,
It's awesome.
he just seems like that kid.
Yes, he does.
Right, and all the reports coming out of Liberty have been that way all season long. By the way,
And he started at Auburn, for those who forget.
yes,
He started at
He was
Auburn.
a high recruit.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't work out. I forget the coach. Whatever. He ends up going to Liberty and having a pretty good year, rising up the radar. His combine is fantastic. The meetings are fantastic. High character.
Position in need.
Elite athlete.
Uh-huh.
If you're the Giants, you got to at least think about
you do.
this. And
Yes, you do.
for a long time we've been talking about, well, what do you do with 2 top 10 picks, man? you got 5 and 7. I mean, if you get it wrong, you really get it wrong twice. So maybe you can package. I've been saying package and go to 1 and go get one of these edge rushers. Maybe the Giants should consider packaging and going probably to 2 because 1 doesn't need it. But Detroit is eyeing Malik Willis heavily right now at number 2. The Panthers are eyeing Malik Willis heavily at number 3.
Even with the $20-something million going to Darnold that they picked up ridiculously?
Yeah.
That they couldn't rescind?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Tepper's willing to spend the money.
I think it would be worth it. They're considering.
I'm not saying
well.
it wouldn't be worth it. Do they have the flexibility to do that?
Maybe I'd have to go look. I should have looked at their cap situation, the Panthers, but because I wasn't thinking about the Panthers, I'm thinking more about the Giants.
But conceptually, they're in the market for a quarterback upgrade. Gotcha.
There are
for sure.
There are a bunch of teams in the
right.
top 5
That's
that are in
right.
the market for a quarterback, and Malik Willis is starting to present himself as that guy of this draft.
Yes, and by the way, you remember this, okay? When they played Syracuse, your partner may have had a few bucks on the game.
A couple shekels.
A couple of shekels, which I don't think I won at. I think I may have had the over. Whatever it was, he played. It was a Friday night game on ESPN, and we knew he was scooting up the draft board. I said, I got to watch this kid.
Yeah.
I can't stand and so many people do this. I'm not saying I've never done it. But I haven't done it for a while, I'd like to think. So many people talk about quarterbacks that they've never seen play.
That's right.
And it drives me nuts.
You're right.
Right? So I'm sitting down and I'm locking myself down for 3 hours. It was at the Carrier Dome, Friday night game. I'm throwing $100 on the game to make sure I watch every snap.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, everything that I had read about the kid, the film that I'd watched, not film, but the footage.
Yeah.
I'm not making it seem like Bo Schembech or I'm cutting up film. Whatever highlights I had, I'm like, this kid's intriguing. And one of the knocks on him, Teak, was that he was small-ish.
Yes.
He's not. He's got thick legs. He's got a thick trunk. He's 6'1", 215. Now, all right, again, we can bombard you with numbers. That's not necessarily the point. This is more as an overriding concept. Do the Giants need to and by the way, maybe they've already had this on their radar from day one. I mean, we're just presenting what we think they're thinking and also kind of amending what we've been putting out there.
Yeah.
Because the ultimate point is this. If you believe that after next season you will absolutely be in the market for a quarterback, right? With Daniel Jones. If you now, you have to look out a year ahead.
Yes.
And there's a couple of kids who are intriguing next year. But the issue's this. If the Giants overachieve this year, and they could because the division's not great, all right, and they have a last play schedule. So if they overachieve, then Daniel Jones is good, but not to the point where it emboldens the Giants to stick with him and pay him.
Yep.
Now you're like, all right, what's in the quarterback, crop in the draft next year? Well, you're not going to have a top 10 pick if you overachieve.
That's right.
So the time to pounce now is now. And I don't know if they're compelled to do it, but they should be compelled to seriously investigate.
Yeah, you're right. That draft class next year is interesting with C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young from Alabama. DJ, if he figures it out, but I don't know if he will.
DJ
I don't love him right now. No. As a potential first round draft pick. But you're right. If you can get that guy this year as opposed to waiting until next year after figuring it out with Daniel Jones, shouldn't you do that? Shouldn't you get the process started now? Look, it sucks for Daniel Jones if this ultimately is the way that they go because he never really got a fair shot with all the coaching changes and the coordinator changes and the lack of offensive line. But if I'm the Giants and I've been impressed as everybody seems to be with Malik Willis in this year's combine, and you go do it at least merits extra work on Malik Willis, as opposed to, yeah, we don't need a quarterback this year. Yeah, we're good with Daniel Jones. We're going to figure out with Daniel Jones. It merits some digging, like maybe even a lot of digging if you're the New York Giants.
Could be time to pivot. 877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney on the Fan inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest prices on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Now, the best teams and the best organizations factor all this stuff in. And you talked about how Detroit might be poised to pounce for a quarterback at number 2. Very well could.
No doubt.
The Texans are at number 3. They're going to trade Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take a quarterback at some point.
Yep.
They could do it now. And then you get to the Jets are obviously, I won't say set, but certainly for now, and hopefully set, but for now, good with Zach. Then you get to the Panthers at 6. Very well might be aggressive.
In between the Giants.
Then you get to the Falcons at 8 with Matt Ryan, who's getting up there. Then you get to Denver at 9, who has been in every quarterback rumor now for the last 3 years. And when you factor in at least the strong thought that Rodgers is likely headed back to Green Bay, that should take somebody off the board. Maybe they make a move for Russell Wilson. Maybe that works out. But they are going to address that gaping hole at quarterback. So between the Lions, the Texans, the Falcons, and the Broncos inside the top 10, I mean, there's a lot of competition. That's the bad news. The good news is there could be a great guy to target, and the additional good news is that the Giants have the draft assets to scoot up and get them if they want to.
This year.
Correct.
They have 2 top 10 picks, top 5 to 7 picks this year. And this is what you always hear. You don't want to bank on being in this position to draft this kid again.
That's what I just said.
I know. You don't want to.
Sure.
So if you're here now, you want to solve it while you can.
Remember the Falcons didn't do that? They took the tight end Pitts, who's good.
That's right.
But we thought, well, maybe this is the year you take the quarterback at 4. They didn't. And what are they doing this year? Probably chasing a quarterback.
That's right.
To our point.
Because if you mess around, as you just were alluding to, and get semi-good, and now you're 15 as opposed to top 5 or 7, you can't take one of these guys anymore. The Giants are in a position where they can take whoever they want because they have 2 first-round picks, and that's movability from a draft positioning standpoint.
That's right, Teak. A couple things we'll do later. You know, obviously Durant was back last night. He was great. Everything else was not. But are the Nets maybe, and I know they're not whole yet. We get that, and that'll change, hopefully. But are the Nets maybe in the midst of the greatest disappointment when you actually look at the talent that they accrued, really, without being hyperbolic, because we'll keep it somewhat modern era, in the history of New York sports? Might sound outlandish, but we'll do that. And Coach K, final game at why am I forgetting the G's? In Cameron Indoor this weekend. And can we ever see a coach like that collegiately in New York or New Jersey? But right now, listen, Giant fans, and I'll tell you this, and we'll get to these calls. If it was flipped and it was the Jets, as much as I wanted to give Darnold the chance, and you know that, and I was obviously wrong with that, because like the Giants failing to insulate Jones properly, the Jets probably were worse because at least Jones has some receivers. But I hung in there in the Darnold fight too long. I would be saying the same exact thing. Even as a Darnold, not believer, but supporter, and if I had 2 picks inside the top 7 and I was falling in love with this kid for Liberty, I'd be saying the same thing. Go up and get him. Or at least think about it.
Well, this is exactly.
Go up. You got to think about it.
BT, this is exactly what happened last year for the Jets. Sam Darnold was still on the team.
Oh, yeah.
They had already picked up they hadn't picked up his 5th-year option. That didn't happen until he went to Carolina. But still, he was in the same spot that Daniel Jones is. 4th year. What are you going to do with him? There's an interesting kid on the board, Zach Wilson, even Justin Fields at that point. But
new coach.
Like it's just maybe it's time to move off of Sam Darnold. They ship him out. It was the right move because we saw Sam Darnold look good for a minute.
Early on, that first game, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Then McCaffrey got hurt. That was it. But he was looking pretty good for a minute. Remember all those rushing touchdowns?
He looked great early on. And then all of a sudden, it proved to be the right move. And it was hard. You rip the Band-Aid off and say, let it go. Could the Giants be thinking that with Daniel Jones, with Malik Willis playing the way that he is in the combine? Maybe.
Well, while we don't know what the Giants are thinking right now, let's find out what you're thinking about this. Let's hit the phones, pound it. 877-337-6666. Let's go to Rob is first up on the Fan in Greenlawn. What's happening, Robbie?
Hey, guys. Loving the show so far since you guys have been on. Really making the midday so amazing.
Appreciate you, Rob.
Thank you, buddy.
What's happening, man?
You were just talking about the Syracuse game a few minutes ago. You were watching the quarterback based off of that Friday night game because you had a few shekels on it. And I'll tell you, I have a vested interest as well because my son's up there at Syracuse right now, and he's calling these games for Newhouse.
Oh, is that right?
Nice.
Oh, that's fantastic, man.
So,
very nice.
So I'm watching every snap, and he's calling it on the radio, but I got the TV synced up with it. So
hey, Rob, what's your kid's name? What's your kid's name?
Johnny Gadamowitz.
Okay, all right, gotcha. We'll keep an ear out.
That's
for
good.
him.
He's not having a good season calling hoops games. They pretty much stink, but
that's been pretty bad too.
I hear you.
But I can tell you that someone who's listened and watched just about every Syracuse game, they were awful. I mean, awful, pitifully awful. And you're going to judge this quarterback? He wasn't playing against big time, competition. We were like a high school football team he was playing against. So you've got to be careful when you're judging this guy off of playing teams like Syracuse. They better really run him through the middle of the combine.
See, but hold on a second, Rob. Hold on, Rob. You're making a little bit of a mistake, and you're not completely off base with that. I hear you.
Yeah.
And listen, was it the same with Steve McNair at Alcorn State? And yes, you need to be able to compartmentalize what matters and what doesn't. I'm not even going on the fact that he had 3 touchdown passes, no picks. I'm going what I saw. How he and again, I'm not. I'll leave this to Tiki, but I think I know at least on a little more than a rudimentary level, like not much more, but like what a guy's looking at, what he sees in front of him, how he's checking down, when he busts out of the pocket, when it's time to tuck it and run, how he protects the ball when he's in tight quarters in the line. And by the way, Rob, can you name, because I can't, anybody on Liberty going to get drafted in the first round? You've got to factor that in.
Yeah.
Who's he playing with?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, and you're right. Syracuse had they had a rough season.
I know.
Really,
it got worse as the year went on. They started getting scored upon.
Yeah, and we thought Dino Babers was going to be. Oof. I mean, we thought he was. Hey, maybe this guy could make it to the NFL as a head coach.
Didn't he almost take the FSU job? What job was he rumored to take about?
Yeah,
3 years ago.
It might have been FSU when Jimbo left. Went to Texas A&M.
He was hot for a minute.
He was real hot for a minute,
and
then it faded quickly. Mm-hmm. And Syracuse is not, obviously not a powerhouse. But Malik Willis, and again, any of these quarterbacks, you have to realize a lot of what they do in college isn't translatable. It's not the same, right? Because you don't run the same type of offenses. You don't have the same type of, schemes and game planning and all those things going on. And so what you try to ascertain, what you try to figure out, regardless of the level of competition. Let's not forget Josh Allen, and he's the prime example because he played out at Wyoming, and they didn't play anybody.
I watched him. I told you the Big Ten game against Iowa.
That's right.
He was on the Big Ten Network. He was horrendous.
Horrendous.
But who did he play with that's in the NFL?
That's exactly
Nobody,
right. And
basically.
So you got to. There's a projectability quotient you got to figure out here,
and it's inexact.
It's hard. So inexact.
I'm not saying it's easy.
That's right.
And I'm not saying Will's going to be a star.
No.
What we're saying is he's intriguing enough, and I think I speak for you. He's intriguing enough where, okay, based on where the Giants are with their reset, and based on where they are with the equity now, and what might not be there next year, blah blah blah. You got to at least seriously kick the tires and think about pivoting. That's all we're saying. 877-337-6666. Twitter at Tiki and Tierney. All right. I don't think this will be a hard sell for Giant fans because based on what I've heard on the Fan, most Giant fans have already bailed on Daniel Jones. So you've got to separate moving on from Jones. That's one aspect, and I think many of you will be okay with that. The other aspect, and that's what I'm not so sure about, would you be okay moving on to somebody like Willis? That's what we've got to get through, and we'll do that coming up next. More calls, Tiki and Tierney on the Fan.